The night before our wedding, Caleb's inner circle gathered for a wild celebration. His female best friend, Riley, handed me a gift that made my blood run cold. Inside the box was a full set of elaborate kinky toys. Seeing my face pale, Riley let out a loud, boisterous laugh. "Elara, don't you dare go easy on him. Caleb might act like a cold, disciplined surgeon during the day, but he's a total beast in bed." Back in January, he used just 3 of these things on me and sent me straight to the ER. I had to nurse those tears for 2 weeks. Then she hooked her arm around Caleb's neck with a playful smirk. "Caleb, let your bro give you some advice. Once you're married, you have to be gentle. Elara looks like a fragile flower. Don't go overboard like that one time when you kept me in bed for 2 days straight right after I healed. I thought I was going to die." My face was ashen, so she dramatically covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh, we're just bros joking around. Elara, you aren't actually mad, are you?" Everyone in the room waited for me to lose my mind. Instead, I forced a light laugh. "Of course not. I should actually thank you for being a free tutor. After all, professional coaches for that kind of thing usually cost at least $300 a night." The moment I finished speaking, Caleb, who had been acting indifferent, finally looked up. His expression was cold as ice, but the anger was directed at me. "Riley was kind enough to get you a gift. What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I shrugged my shoulders carelessly. I meant exactly what she meant. "But since your teacher worked so hard and even ended up in the hospital, you really should have given her a bigger tip." The room went dead silent. Riley's eyes instantly welled up with tears. Caleb's face darkened, and his chair screeched against the floor as he stood up. "Elara Thorne, how dare you talk about Riley like that? Is this how your family raised you? To be so foul-mouthed and disrespectful?" I leaned back against my chair, finding the whole situation pathetic. She brought it up first. If anyone is being foul-mouthed, it's definitely not me. The atmosphere became increasingly awkward. Caleb stared at me, ready to snap, when Riley let out a soft sob. When everyone turned to look at her, she quickly wiped her eyes and put on a brave face. "Caleb, please don't fight with Elara on my account. It's my fault. I have a big mouth. I'm so used to messing around with the guys that I forgot Elara was here." With that, she raised her hand and gave herself a light slap on the cheek. It was barely a tap, but Caleb's face twisted in pain as if he had been the one hit. "Why would you do that to yourself?" Riley, with tears shimmering in her eyes, gave him a playful kick. "Damn it, Caleb. Stop yelling at me unless you want me to break your legs." Caleb held her chin, checking her cheek with a focused intensity he usually reserved for surgery. Once he was sure she was fine, he glared at me. "Tonight was supposed to be a celebration with my brothers. If you can't handle a joke, go home." The others looked at me, some with blatant disgust in their eyes. I ignored them and looked straight at Riley. "So it was a joke. You didn't actually get torn up by him." "Elara, that is enough." Caleb slammed his hand on the table and roared. His friends rushed to hold him back while Riley kicked him again. "I just told you to be nice to her. Why won't you listen to me?" The VIP room was a chaotic mess. I stood up and let out a cold laugh. I've seen enough of this brotherly love for one night. "Thanks for the drinks, but keep the gifts for yourselves. Since you've used them before, you clearly have the experience." I grabbed my bag and walked out, ignoring Caleb's furious shouting behind me. The summer air was humid. By the time I got into the driver's seat, I was drenched in a cold sweat. My throat felt tight and dry. I had to swallow hard several times just to steady my breathing. How could Caleb do this? We had been together for 3 years. Our wedding was scheduled for tomorrow. And yet, behind my back, he was playing games with his bro. That landed her in the hospital. I punched the steering wheel just as my phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb. "You were incredibly immature tonight. Riley was just joking, and you had to make it disgusting." Luckily, Riley is a bigger person than you. She said she won't hold it against you, so we're moving past this. Go home. Tell your parents and the relatives that the dress needs some last-minute alterations. The wedding is postponed by 1 day. I stared at the last message in disbelief and let out a jagged laugh. The wedding dress needed alterations? How come I, the bride, didn't know about this? Driven by a dark impulse, I opened the group chat Caleb had added me to tonight and clicked on Riley's profile. Her social media feed was public. 5 minutes ago, she had posted a new video. In the video, Caleb's wrists were tied behind his back with a black silk tie. He was kneeling in front of her. She sat on a chair like a queen while the other guys threw flower petals around her. I turned up the volume. I heard Caleb laugh, sounding helpless and fond as he barked like a dog for her. The caption read, "A perfectly good party ruined by someone who can't take a joke. Such a buzzkill. At least my dog is well behaved. He postponed the wedding just to make it up to me with another party tomorrow night. Ugh, I guess I'll forgive him. I'm too soft-hearted for my own good." Below that post, there was a comment thread between Caleb and Riley. "Are you satisfied now, Your Highness? I must have owed you a debt in a past life." "Shut up, Caleb. You owe me in this life too. Remember when you got into a fight as a kid and tore your shirt? You ran to my house and stole mine right off my back. You have a lot of nerve bringing that up. If you hadn't scared those kids with a toad, they wouldn't have cornered you. I was saving you. A dog saving its owner is just nature. You dare to rebel. Reading their nostalgic banter made my knuckles turn white. I couldn't even bring myself to watch the video a second time. I was afraid I would vomit right there in the car. I drove home like a maniac. The first thing I did was open Caleb's laptop. Caleb was a renowned surgeon, a man defined by his discipline and professional excellence. He was supposed to be rigorous, solemn, and devoted to his work. The way he acted with Riley tonight had shattered that image, but one question haunted me. During our 3 years together, he was always at the hospital. He wouldn't even take a day off for my birthday. Once, when I was so sick I couldn't move, he wouldn't even come home because of an emergency in the ER. When did he find the time to spend 2 days and nights with Riley? I opened his digital calendar. I scrolled back to the beginning of the year. In January, there was only one major event blocked out for an entire month. Savannah Medical Summit. Savannah. That was Riley's hometown. It hit me like a physical blow. He told me he was there for a conference. The realization felt like a string snapping in my brain. I searched deeper and found at least 200 entries for Savannah over the past year. Summits, consultations, late-night emergencies. Every time he told me he was working or traveling to Savannah, he was actually with Riley. When he claimed to be at the hospital for a night shift, were those kinky toys hidden in his medical bag? The nausea was overwhelming. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay grounded. When I opened them, I saw his graduation photo on the shelf. Oh, serious, scholarly, and prestigious. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over, ripped the photo out of the frame, and shredded it. A disciplined man of medicine? What a freaking joke. But then, my eyes caught the rows of trophies next to the frame. A plan began to form. This wedding wasn't just about the two of us. It was a massive business merger between the Thorne and Pierce families. I couldn't just think about my broken heart. I threw the scraps of the photo into the trash and spent the rest of the night making phone calls. The next morning, I heard the door unlock while I was in my room. It wasn't Caleb. It was Riley, storming in like she owned the place. Morning, Elara. I'm just here to grab Caleb's razor. His beard is getting all scratchy and it's grossing me out. She marched straight into the master bathroom, finding the electric razor with practiced ease. I noticed the key ring dangling from her finger. It wasn't Caleb's set. This was our new house, bought for our marriage. I had only moved in a week ago, but her key looked worn and old. When she came out, I was leaning against the doorframe with my arms crossed. I arched an eyebrow. Is this where you usually give my fiancé his lessons, Riley? Riley paused, then looked away with a look of pure annoyance. She muttered to herself, making sure I could hear every word. Here we go again. Women are so much drama, always looking for something to be jealous of. As she passed the guest room, she saw my traditional red wedding robe hanging on the wall. She laughed. Elara, why did you pick such an ugly robe? The one Caleb and I bought last year was way hotter than this. My eyes narrowed. Just then Caleb walked in. Why are you still sitting around? Didn't we agree to go to the bridal shop today? His words were so absurd I almost laughed. Who did you agree with? It certainly wasn't me. I was the last person to find out our wedding was even postponed. Caleb's handsome brow furrowed at my tone. He gestured for Riley to head out first. Riley shrugged and gave him another playful kick on her way out. Don't get into a fight with her, Caleb. If you make her cry, I'll break your legs. Yeah, I hear you. You're the boss. Caleb practically bowed her out of the room. As soon as the door closed, his face went cold. Are you done yet? You really can't take a joke? You ruined the vibe last night, and now you're going to drag this out all day. Don't forget, your family needs our medical reputation to break into the healthcare industry. If you keep this up, you won't get a cent of that deal. The way he threatened me was a stark contrast to how he treated Riley. This was the first time I realized how well Dr. Pierce could wear a mask. 3 days ago, Caleb had invited me into his group chat, saying they were all brothers he grew up with. At first, I thought it was sweet that he wanted me in his inner circle. I even introduced him to all my friends. But his brothers were different from my friends. He and his brothers shopped for wedding lingerie and played with toys until someone needed stitches. He even let himself be treated like a dog by a woman he called a sister. The image of him barking flashed in my mind. I pressed a hand to my stomach and nodded. You're right. I was being immature. Seeing me back down, Caleb's posture relaxed. I'm glad you understand. Riley and I grew up together. There's no gender between us. We're just brothers. It doesn't affect our relationship. Besides, she was just kidding last night. If it really bugs you, I'll tell her to tone it down. I forced a smile. Before I could speak, Riley called him. Caleb, how long am I supposed to wait? I've already eaten all the snacks in your car. He hurried toward the door. I'm coming. I watched his back and checked my phone. My friends were blowing up our group chat. They say finding out about a cheat before the wedding is a gift from the universe. Tell us the plan, Elara. We're ready to ruin him. I typed back a simple message. Be patient. He still has to be the groom. Let's not ruin his prestigious image just yet. On the way to the shop, their flirting didn't stop for a second. When we arrived at the bridal boutique, Riley hopped out of the passenger seat and pointed at my custom gown. Caleb, you actually have good taste. This dress is fire. Let me try it on. The staff stood there awkwardly, looking at me for direction. Caleb just laughed as he walked inside. I thought you hated dresses? Didn't you say wearing one made you feel naked? Shut up. This is a wedding dress, it's different. Are you going to let me try it or not? Fine, fine. If the boss wants to play dress up, who am I to say no? Caleb waved at the staff. They had no choice but to take the gown down and lead Riley to the fitting room. Only then did he remember I was standing there. Riley never wants to get married. Just let her have some fun with it. Don't worry, she knows the limits. It'll still be your dress in the end. I dug my nails into my palms inside my pockets, keeping my face neutral. It's fine. Let her wear it as long as she wants. Caleb seemed surprised by how compliant I was being. He frowned slightly, but then Riley's voice echoed from the fitting room. Caleb, get in here and help me. I can't reach the back. He didn't hesitate for a second. I called out to him. Caleb. He paused in the middle of the room, looking back over his shoulder, but his body was still angled toward her. What? I looked at his distracted face for a few seconds before pointing to the side. Tell her to try on the veil too. The full set looks better. Caleb's eyes lit up. He grabbed the veil and disappeared inside. The boutique staff stepped out of the room looking extremely uncomfortable. Inside, the bickering continued. Careful. Are you trying to murder your own brother? Stop being so skinny. I've pulled the laces as tight as they go and there's still a gap. Stop talking, and don't step on my train, you idiot. Suddenly, it went quiet. I sat by the entrance and started answering work emails. Nearly 2 hours later, Riley finally emerged in her t-shirt and jeans. Her face was flushed. Caleb's hair was a mess. He walked behind her and spoke to me quickly. The guys are meeting up tonight. You finish the alterations and go home. Get some rest so you don't look tired for the ceremony tomorrow. I smiled softly. Okay. As I watched their car pull away, I heard a gasp from inside the shop. Oh my God. Look at the chest. It's completely torn. Miss Thorne, this dress is hand-stitched. There's no time to fix this before tomorrow. What do we do? I didn't even look up. I didn't want to see the wreckage of my dream dress. I just pulled out my phone. It's fine. Just box it up. Please deliver it to this address tomorrow morning. On the day of the wedding, I slept until I woke up naturally. When I arrived at the hotel, the coordinator ran up to me, looking frantic. I'm so sorry, Ms. Thorne. Mr. Pierce said, well, since you weren't here yet, they should take some photos first. I looked into the ballroom. Riley was wearing a brand new wedding gown, her hair and makeup done perfectly. She was posing for photos with Caleb. Caleb was complaining about the hassle, but whenever the photographer gave a command, he obeyed instantly. He knelt on one knee and kissed her hand. When he stood up, he stumbled slightly, almost hitting a flower arrangement. The photographer laughed. Is the groom getting nervous? Riley poked his shoulder. Look at you, acting like a rookie. Don't worry, I've got your back. A few people in the crowd chuckled. Finally, they noticed me. Riley waved me over. Elara, I tested the aisle for you. It's a smooth walk. She gave Caleb a casual pat on the shoulder. All right, I've had my fun. Don't let me ruin your big day. Thanks, Caleb. Caleb smirked. Saying thanks? I thought we were bros. Whatever. She playfully threw a punch and headed toward the bridal suite. Caleb straightened his tuxedo. You're late. Where are your parents? Only a few of your relatives are here. Was there traffic? He spoke carelessly while checking his phone. The screen showed a beautiful field of yellow flowers. I changed our honeymoon destination to this place. Riley and the guys haven't been there yet, so they're coming along. We leave tonight. Make sure you book your ticket. I tilted my head, realizing he hadn't looked me in the eye once. For 3 years, he never treated me like his priority. He claimed he only cared about medicine. I used to tell my friends he was a workaholic, and that love only took up 5% of his brain. Now I realized love probably took up 90%. It just wasn't for me. It's time. Why isn't the officiant here yet? He reached for his phone to call, but then he caught sight of my simple sundress. His pupils shrunk. Why aren't you wearing your wedding dress? I smiled. You guys played so hard yesterday that you tore it to shreds. How am I supposed to wear it? He immediately scowled. I've told you 1,000 times, Riley and I are just friends. Stop projecting your filthy thoughts onto us. Is that so? I thought you were just so overwhelmed with passion that you couldn't wait for the toys and just went for it. Elara Thorne, if you say one more disgusting word, this wedding is off. Good. That one word hit Caleb like a physical blow. Before he could react, I grabbed the microphone and walked onto the stage. Welcome, everyone, to the wedding of Caleb Pierce and Riley West. I am your host for the evening, Elara Thorne. The guests were stunned. Caleb turned pale and rushed toward the stage to grab the mic. I snapped my fingers. The giant LED screen behind me flickered to life. It was the security footage from the bridal shop dressing room. Before we begin, please enjoy these intimate moments between our bride and groom. The audio echoed across the ballroom with horrific clarity. The high-definition speakers, rented specifically to carry wedding vows to every corner of the 500-seat venue, relayed every rustle of silk, every gasped breath, and every muffled, breathless whisper. On the 3-story LED screen behind me, the boutique fitting room was rendered in crystal-clear 4K. The footage showed Caleb's back as he pinned Riley against the mirrored wall. The delicate white chantilly lace of my custom gown was bunched up around her hips, the intricate bodice strained and tearing at the seams under his trembling, impatient fingers. Stop squirming, Riley. Caleb's voice blasted through the hall, thick with lust and ragged with effort. I told you the lace is too delicate. You're going to rip it. Who cares? Riley's laughter purred from the speakers, breathless and arrogant. It looks better on me anyway. Besides, Elara would never wear it like this. She's too boring. She probably lies in bed like a corpse. You think I care about her? Caleb muttered on screen, burying his face in the crook of her neck, his hands tearing the fabric with a sharp, audible rip. She's just the face for the merger. A pretty little trophy for my family's board. You're the only one who knows what I really need. The collective gasp from the 500 guests sitting in the grand hall was loud enough to drown out the air conditioning. Glasses shattered on marble. Silverware clattered against fine porcelain. Caleb froze at the base of the stage. The blood drained from his face so rapidly. He looked like one of the cadavers he operated on. His pupils shrank into needlepoints as he stared up at the towering screen, watching himself grovel, fondle, and desecrate the very symbol of our union in front of his family, his hospital directors, and the entire high society of the city. Turn it off. Caleb suddenly roared, his voice cracking violently. Turn it off. Right now. Where is the AV technician? Turn that fucking screen off. He lunged toward the stage steps, his polished dress shoes slipping slightly on the polished floor. 2 men in black suits stepped out from behind the velvet stage curtains. They weren't venue security. They were private security hired under my father's direct payroll. They stood like stone pillars, blocking the stairs, their arms crossed over broad chests. Caleb, don't rush off. I said into the microphone, my voice steady, conversational, almost sweet. We haven't even gotten to the best part yet. Keep watching. The lighting in the boutique was really exceptional. Elara. Caleb screamed, his neck veins bulging against his stiff tuxedo collar. You've lost your goddamn mind. Is this some sick prank? Shut it down. From the VIP bridal suite door at the side of the hall, Riley burst out. She had already taken off the sample gown and was back in her designer jeans and cropped jacket, but her face was completely devoid of its usual smug bravado. What is that? Riley shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at the screen where her own flushed face was currently moaning Caleb's name. That's illegal. That's hidden surveillance. I'll sue you into the ground, Elara. I'll destroy you. Sue the boutique owner, Riley. I replied smoothly, leaning against the podium. Oh wait. You can't. The owner is my godmother. And when she noticed 2 animals destroying a $40,000 handcrafted couture dress in her private VIP suite, she was kind enough to archive the footage for insurance purposes. Consider this the public assessment of damages. In the front row, Caleb's father, Dr. Richard Pierce, the chief of surgery and chairman of the Pierce Medical Group, stood up so abruptly that his heavy mahogany chair tipped backward and crashed onto the floor. His face was mottled with purple rage. Caleb, what in God's name is the meaning of this? Beside him sat my father, Arthur Thorne, whose seat was notably empty. In fact, if Caleb had possessed even an ounce of awareness instead of being consumed by his narcissistic games, he would have realized that not a single member of the Thorne board or executive team was present. Only the Pierce family and their medical elite sat there like lambs waiting for slaughter. Dad, it's not what it looks like. Caleb stammered, frantically looking between his father and the screen, which was now showing him on his knees fastening Riley's heels while she stroked his hair like a pet. We were just joking around. Riley and I grew up together. It was an adrenaline thing, a stupidare. Adare. I interrupted through the speakers. Is that what you called the Savannah Medical Summit in January, Caleb? I tapped a button on the tablet resting on the podium. The video feed split. On the left side, the fitting room scene continued on a muted loop. On the right side, a massive, comprehensive spreadsheet materialized. Let's talk about the Savannah summits, I said, my voice echoing with crisp authority. Over the past 12 months, Dr. Caleb Pierce logged 214 days of out-of-town medical consultations, specialized surgical summits, and late-night emergency dispatches. I scrolled through the dates. Curiously, the hospital's central registry has no record of these emergency consults. But do you know who does have a record? The Savannah Grand Luxury Hotel. Receipts began populating the screen. Booking confirmations, room service bills, running into thousands of dollars for champagne, oysters, and specialty sweets. All booked under Caleb's corporate medical research card. And all registered with the second guest, Riley West. While you were supposedly performing miracle surgeries on dying children, Caleb, you were expensing presidential suites and leather bondage equipment to the Pierce Foundation's philanthropic research fund. The hall erupted. Several senior board members from the hospital stood up in disgust. These were men and women of immense stature in the scientific and medical community, people who valued prestige and ethics above all else. Expensing private escapades to the foundation? Dr. Robert Vance, the hospital's chief ethics officer, barked, glaring at Caleb's father. Richard, is this where our endowment grants have been going? To fund your sons' perversions? No. Vance, please, this is a family matter. Richard Pierce tried to intervene, his voice shaking with humiliation. It stopped being a family matter when he used hospital capital, I said, clearly. And it certainly stopped being a family matter when Caleb signed the Thorne-Pierce healthcare merger agreement yesterday afternoon, using those fraudulent research balance sheets to inflate your group's valuation. Caleb's eyes widened to the size of saucers. The merger? What did you do to the merger? My father withdrew our $30 million liquidity injection at 8 o'clock this morning. I smiled, looking down at him from the stage. And at 8:30, our legal team filed a formal report with the State Medical Licensing Board and the Financial Regulatory Commission for embezzlement of nonprofit medical grants. You sabotaged our family? Caleb took a staggered step forward, his voice a ragged whisper of disbelief. Elara, we were getting married today. Everything I built was supposed to be ours. No, Caleb. Everything you built was a stage prop for you and your bro to play your sick little games while I funded the audience. Riley, seeing the ship sinking at astronomical speed, rushed toward the stage, her voice high and hysterical. You crazy bitch. You're just jealous. Caleb loves me. He's always loved me. You were just a boring placeholder because his family wanted an obedient little society girl. He barks for me. He crawls for me. He doesn't give a damn about you. The entire ballroom went dead silent at her unhinged outburst. Riley realized what she had just admitted to in front of hundreds of high society elites and covered her mouth in horror, but the damage was permanent, total, and absolute. Caleb turned on her, his face contorted in sheer panic. Riley, shut up. Shut your fucking mouth. What? You're telling me to shut up? Riley screeched, her carefully crafted, cool tomboy persona completely disintegrating into venomous rage. You promised me this wouldn't affect us. You promised me that once you secured the Thorne family's money, we could buy the estate in Savannah and do whatever we wanted. You told me she was an idiot who would believe anything as long as you put on your white coat and acted tired. A heavy crystal wine glass flew across the aisle and shattered against the stage riser near Riley's feet. It was thrown by Caleb's mother. Mrs. Pierce was trembling, her pearl necklace practically vibrating against her chest, her face pale with horror. Get out. Get out of here, you gutter trash. Both of you. Mom. Caleb pleaded, dropping to his knees on the carpet, reaching out toward his parents. Mom, Dad, listen to me. Richard Pierce didn't even look at him. With a face like thunder, the older man turned around, walked past his groveling son, and exited the ballroom through the side doors, followed by the entire contingent of board members and hospital donors. Within 3 minutes, the ballroom began to empty in a wave of hushed whispers, horrified glances, and the frantic clicking of phone cameras. Guests were live streaming. The video clips of Caleb groveling and Riley's confession were already circulating through every elite social media circle in the state. I set the microphone down on the podium. The soft thump reverberated through the speakers. I picked up my small designer handbag, stepped down the rear stairs of the stage, and walked toward the grand double doors of the hotel lobby. Caleb saw me and scrambled across the floor, catching the hem of my simple sundress. Elara. Elara, please. Don't do this. We can fix this. It was a mistake, I swear. It was an addiction, a phase. I can go to therapy. I'll never see Riley again. I'll cut her off completely. I stopped. I looked down at him. He was kneeling, clutching my dress just like he had knelt for Riley in that viral video. Only this time, there was no silk tie, no playful smirk, no smug arrogance. Only the pathetic, sniveling desperation of a man who realized he had set fire to his entire kingdom just to keep a parasite warm. You don't need to cut her off, Caleb, I said, gently pulling my dress from his grasp. You two are made for each other. You deserve every single second of what's coming next. Without looking back, I pushed through the heavy glass doors into the bright, clean morning air. By nightfall, the fallout had metastasized into an extinction-level event for the Pierce family. The story wasn't just local gossip. It had been picked up by major regional news outlets. A prominent, high-society surgeon caught using hospital research funds to finance illicit trysts with his childhood friend, exposed on his own wedding day by his billionaire fiancé. It was the kind of scandal the internet devoured alive. I sat on the balcony of my private penthouse in the city center, sipping a glass of chilled white wine. Across from me sat Clara, my best friend and corporate attorney, her laptop open. On the marble table, the state medical board just issued an emergency suspension of his surgical license pending an ethics and financial inquiry, Clara said, taking a sip of her cocktail with a satisfied grin. And the Pierce Medical Group stock dropped 14% at the market close. Richard Pierce called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning to officially remove Caleb from all executive and clinical positions. And Riley? I asked calmly. Oh, it gets better, Clara laughed. Riley worked as an independent interior consultant, mostly living off consulting fees Caleb funneled to her through the hospital's renovation projects. The audit committee just froze all vendor payouts. She has zero income, $30,000 in credit card debt due next week, and the boutique's legal counsel just served her with a lawsuit for the destruction of the custom dress. $40,000 for the gown, I mused. Plus emotional distress and property damage to the suite. Let's make sure the boutique doesn't settle for a penny less. They won't, Clara assured me. My firm is handling the boutique's case pro bono. Just then, my phone began to buzz violently on the table. It was Caleb. For the last 6 hours, he had called over 70 times and sent hundreds of frantic texts. Elara, please pick up. They took my badge. They locked me out of my office. My father had a mild heart attack. He's in the ICU and won't see me. I'm at our new house. Why won't my key work? Elara, where are you? I stared at the messages without a flicker of emotion. The new house he referred to was a luxury villa in the gated hills of the Northern District. When we chose it, Caleb claimed that as a surgeon his assets were tied up in hospital trusts, so he asked me to put the down payment down first, promising he would contribute to the mortgage once the merger finalized. The entire property had been bought under my personal shell company. He didn't own a single square inch of the floorboards he was currently standing on. I picked up the phone, unlocked the screen, and dialed the property manager of the estate. Good evening, Mr. Harrison. This is Elara Thorne. Ms. Thorne. I saw the news. Are you all right? I'm wonderful, thank you. I'm calling because there's an unauthorized trespasser currently loitering outside my property at Villa 14. He might be trying to break the lock. Say no more, Ms. Thorne. Private security is on their way with the police. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Have a good evening. At the gates of Villa 14, the night air was chilly. Caleb stood on the porch, his tuxedo rumpled, his bow tie hanging loose around his unbuttoned collar. His hands were raw from pounding on the reinforced oak door. Elara, open the door. I know you're in there, he screamed into the empty courtyard. His phone was dying. His car, a Maserati funded through a hospital executive lease, had already been flagged for repossession by the board's emergency decree. Headlights suddenly swept across the driveway. Caleb turned, his eyes lighting up with hope. Elara. A sleek black sedan pulled up, but it wasn't mine. The door opened, and Riley stepped out, looking disheveled, her mascara smeared across her cheeks. She was carrying 2 oversized designer duffel bags. Caleb, she cried, running toward him. Thank God you're here. The landlord at my apartment complex just told me the lease was canceled because the corporate guarantor pulled out. I don't have anywhere to go. Caleb stared at her, his expression shifting from confusion to cold, venomous fury. What are you doing here? He growled. Riley blinked, startled by his tone. What do you mean? I came to stay with you. We need to figure out what to do. My bank cards are declined, my socials are full of death threats. People are calling me a home-wrecking parasite. You are a parasite, Caleb roared, lunging forward and grabbing her by the shoulders, shaking her violently. You ruined my life. You had to push it, didn't you? You had to give her those fucking toys. You had to make that post. You had to try on that goddamn dress. Let go of me. Riley screamed, thrashing against his grip. You were the one who wanted to do it. You were the one who begged me in the fitting room. You told me you loved me. You said she was just a business deal. Because she was supposed to make me a billionaire. Caleb shouted, his voice cracking with hysteria. She had $30 million. She had the Thorn name. She had everything I needed to become the youngest hospital CEO in the state. And what do you have? You have nothing. You're a high school dropout who's been leeching off me since we were 16. You ungrateful bastard. Riley shrieked, slapping him across the face with all her strength. The slap echoed sharply in the quiet neighborhood. Caleb staggered back, his hand coming up to his burning cheek. For years, whenever Riley hit him or kicked him, he had treated it as an endearing quirk, proof of their unique, boundary-free bond, a sign that she was his master, and he was her devoted companion. Now stripped of his wealth, his status, and his future, the illusion was dead. He didn't see a charming, rebellious free spirit. He saw the architect of his total ruin. Get off my property, Caleb hissed, his voice dropping into a dangerous, guttural growl. Your property? Riley let out a hysterical, mocking laugh. Look at the gate. You idiot. Look who's here. 2 private security cruisers and a police car rolled silently up the cobblestone drive, their blue and red lights painting the manicured lawns in eerie shades. 4 officers stepped out. Caleb Pierce? Riley West, the lead officer asked, shining a heavy flashlight directly into their faces. Officer, thank God, Caleb said, stepping forward. This woman is trespassing on my estate. Actually, Mr. Pierce, the officer said, pulling out an official document, the owner of this estate, Ms. Elara Thorne, has filed an immediate restraining order and a formal trespass notice against both of you. You have 5 minutes to collect any personal vehicles and vacate the premises, or you will be arrested on site. Caleb froze. What? No, I live here. I chose the furniture. You're not on the title, sir. Step away from the door. Riley fell to the pavement, weeping hysterically into her hands. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have any money. The officers didn't answer. They simply stood in a line, hands resting on their utility belts, watching as the once golden boy of the medical world and his beloved companion stood shivering on the side of the road, surrounded by the flashing red and blue lights of their new reality. 2 months passed. The summer heat gave way to the crisp, sharp breeze of early autumn. In the downtown financial district, the Thorne Group headquarters was bustling with new energy. Following the collapse of the Pierce Medical merger, my father and I redirected our $30 million capital injection toward a joint venture with St. Jude's Research Hospital, acquiring 3 state-of-the-art biotech laboratories and establishing a brand new medical technology wing. I was named the managing director of the new healthcare division. My schedule was packed with investor meetings, clinical trials, and architectural planning for our new diagnostic center. The memory of Caleb Pierce had become nothing more than a brief, mildly annoying footnote in my life, a reminder to always check the foundation before investing. In the building, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, I walked out of the Thorne Tower lobby, flanked by 2 executive assistants and my security detail. The driver was holding the door of my town car open when a figure suddenly lunged from behind the marble pillars near the public square. Elara. Security moved with mechanical efficiency. Before the man could get within 10 feet of me, 2 bodyguards had him pinned against the wet granite pavement, his arms locked behind his back. Wait. Don't hurt him. Just keep him there, I said, stepping forward under the large black umbrella held by my assistant. I looked down at the man on the ground. It took me several seconds to recognize Caleb. The change was shocking. The tailored Italian suits, the meticulously styled hair, the arrogant, polished surgeon's demeanor, all of it was gone. He was wearing a cheap, faded raincoat that smelled faintly of damp wool and stale fast food. His face was gaunt, with dark, hollow circles under his bloodshot eyes and an unkempt, patchy beard. His hands, once insured for millions of dollars, were rough and trembling. Elara. Caleb choked out, looking up at me through the rain. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. Just 5 minutes. I gestured slightly to the guards, and they eased their grip, though they kept him firmly on his knees. You have 2 minutes, Caleb, I said, my voice as cool and distant as the autumn rain. Make it count. Tears sprang into his eyes, cutting clean tracks through the grime on his face. I lost everything, Elara, he sobbed, his voice cracking. The board stripped my medical license for 5 years. The hospital sued me for $2.4 million to recover the misallocated funds. My father officially disowned me. He changed his will and took my name off the family trust. Actions have consequences, Dr. Pierce. Surely your medical training covered cause and effect. I was blind. I was sick in the head. Caleb cried, reaching out with shaking hands, though he didn't dare touch me. Riley, she was a poison in my life. You were right about everything. Do you know what she did? When the money ran out, she tried to sell private videos of us to tabloid sites. She stole my watch collection from my car and pawned it to pay her legal fees. I tilted my head, unimpressed. And did you break her legs like she always promised she'd do to you? Caleb flinched, as if I had struck him with a whip. We got into a fight last week, he whispered, staring at the ground in deep ching. The police were called. She took out a domestic protection order against me. I'm living in a $600 a month basement studio on the south side. I'm working as a medical billing clerk under a fake name just to pay for groceries. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, sickening hope. Elara, I know I destroyed your trust, but you loved me once. 3 years. 3 years wasn't a lie. I loved you. I was just weak. I was flattered by her games. I thought I was untouchable. If you give me another chance, even just as an assistant in your new biotech firm, I'll do anything. I'll work for free. I'll sign any contract. I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I can be the man you deserved. To emphasize his words, he slowly pressed his forehead against the wet, dirty pavement at my feet. The former chief of surgery, the proud, disciplined, untouchable Dr. Pierce, bowing in the dirt, begging for scraps outside my office building. I stood there in silence, listening to the steady patter of rain against the fabric of the umbrella. Around us, pedestrians were pausing to look, whispering among themselves, recognizing the disgraced surgeon who had become the city's favorite cautionary. Dale, Caleb, I said softly. He immediately raised his head, his face wet with rain and tears, hope flaring like a dying ember in his chest. Yes, Elara? Yes. Do you remember what Riley said to me that night at the lounge? Caleb's face went stiff. She told me you were a cold, disciplined surgeon by day, but a total beast in bed, I said, my voice clear enough for the assistants and security guards to hear. She said you were a dog that needed a master. And in that video you posted, you barked for her on command. Caleb turned a violent, sickening shade of red. Elara, please. You don't want a wife, Caleb. You don't want a partner. You don't even want redemption, I continued coldly. You just want an owner who will feed you and tell you you're a good boy while you destroy everything they value. I took a step back, opening the door to my town car. I don't keep pets, I said, looking down at him one last time. Especially not mangy ones who bite the hand that cleans them. Elara, no, don't leave me like this. Elara. He lunged forward, but the security team blocked him instantly, forcing him back down onto the pavement. I got into the back seat of the car. The assistant closed the heavy door with a solid, muted thud, cutting off Caleb's frantic screams entirely. The interior of the car was warm, smelling of rich leather and fresh white lilies. Drive, I told the chauffeur. The town car glided smoothly into the traffic of the boulevard. In the side mirror, I saw the small, pathetic figure of Caleb Pierce kneeling, alone in the rain, surrounded by gray asphalt, watching the red taillights of my car disappear into the city. 6 months later, the grand opening gala for the Thorne St. Jude Institute of Advanced Oncology was held at the city's premier cultural center. The hall was filled with world-renowned researchers, international philanthropists, and political leaders. The atmosphere was elegant, refined, and electric with genuine purpose. I wore an emerald green evening gown, simple yet striking, completely devoid of the traditional laces and white frills that once defined my supposed destiny. To the future of targeted gene therapy, Arthur Thorne said, clinking his champagne flute against mine. The board is unanimous, Elara. You've expanded our market capitalization by 20% in half a year. It's easy to build when you don't have dead weight pulling down the structure. Dad, I replied with a smile. Across the room, Clara walked over, holding an open tablet. Thought you might appreciate a little evening digest, she murmured, showing me the screen. On the screen was a local court docket report and a small news clipping from the Savannah Gazette. Riley West sentenced to 18 months for grand larceny and fraudulent bankruptcy filings. After being sued by the bridal boutique, her landlords, and several former clients whom she had defrauded for high-end interior furnishings, Riley had attempted to flee to her hometown, only to be arrested at the airport with stolen luxury goods belonging to her former acquaintances. Below that was a secondary report. Former surgeon Caleb Pierce files for personal Chapter 7 liquidation, default. Judgment granted to Pierce Medical Trust. Caleb had been completely wiped out, unable to pay his debts, blacklisted from every clinical institution in North America. He had taken a low-wage job as a night shift sanitation worker at a private industrial plant outside the state lines, the only place willing to hire a man with a ruined criminal and civil record. I glanced at the tablet for 3 seconds, then handed it back to Clara. Is that all? I asked. Clara looked surprised. You don't want to know anything else? Not even what his father said about him in the press release? No, I said, turning my gaze back toward the grand hall, where hundreds of brilliant, visionary minds were gathered to celebrate real progress, real medicine, and real ambition. They spent their lives playing trivial games in private rooms. I have an entire world to build. I raised my glass to the room, feeling the warmth of the lights, the rhythm of the music, and the boundless, untamed freedom of a life entirely my own.